I'm humbled and grateful that all of you came out to hear my goofy little story. So, and it really is a goofy story. So, I'm not much with PowerPoint, so I kind of wasn't quite sure about the technology we had. So most of you guys have seen the pictures that I've placed on Facebook. So really, it's just I got a bunch of stories that are kind of in my head. You know, I'll take some questions and answers and kind of go from there. But the very first question that everyone asks is why and how. So I'll get those two out of the way now. So what happened about this time last year, you know, the Olympics were starting to get rolling, and as many of you know, I short track speed skate, and so myself and Chris Knapp, we both speed skate competitively. He's a little bit better than me, but that's a whole different story. And both he and I have worked ice crew. Years ago, the Nationals were in Cleveland, Ohio, and we were ice crew for, you know, Apollo Ono was there, all the world-class guys in the United States were there. And ice crew is the people that take the little, they call them cups, and put them on the dots where the people skate around. And then between races, you have to move these to a different track. There's 5 tracks, and you put down water. And then when they skate, if they kick one, you got to skate out while they're going 35 miles an hour and pick up the one and put a cup down. So it's a pretty defined skill set. And I figured, well, there's not a whole lot of people in the world that are capable of doing that can take time off work and just, I figured I had a unique skill set. So I called USA Speed Skating, and it was returned with silence. They had no conception on how to volunteer for the Olympics. They suggested call International Speed Skating Union. So I called them, and they had no clue. And then Brent Lehman, a guy that I rollerblade with, he said there's a guy in town, George Gans. Does anybody know George? So he volunteered for the Vancouver Olympics. So I contacted him, and he said there's a volunteer site. So if you just Google Sochi volunteers, you'll get some Russian site, and then there's an English version too. And so I found that, and I filled out my, it was a really long form you had to fill out, and filled that out and just waited and waited and waited. And then like a month later, I would get an email, so-and-so, you need to take this test in English. I'm like, well, I'm pretty good at that. So took the test in English, and then waited and waited and waited. And then, so it was just all these little steps that took forever. And then I had a Skype interview. So, so some Russian lady comes up, and she interviews, and it was, since I'm a headhunter, I interview people all day, but it was like mainly first responder stuff, you know, really common sense stuff, but it was kind of a different interview. So I made it through that, and then waited and waited and waited and waited. But so this whole time, I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to be ice crew at the Olympics. I mean, that's kind of what I thought. I was like, and then it gets to be, I don't know, maybe November, like, so it's coming up, and so I get a note, it says da, which means yes in Russian. It says yes, you've been accepted. And so I get this letter, and I go, okay, well, I guess now it's for real, but it didn't say what I was doing. So I went out, and I tried to figure out what I was doing, and you email back and forth, and no one returns the emails, their number doesn't work, and this is just, I guess this is a Russian thing, which I've came to learn, is their management skills are a little iffy. So as many of you guys know, I'm a pretty optimistic guy. So I just kind of put faith that it would all work out, and I bought my ticket over there, and then maybe 3 weeks later, I get another letter. Well, you're going to be assigned to the cross country and biathlon center at the Laura ski area. They call it Laura ski area. I'm like, okay, well, that's not short track. And then I'm looking at the logistics, and I'll get into this kind of stuff too. So, so I know all the short track skaters in the United States. I'm friends with them on Facebook. So I know no cross country skiers. So I start looking up on the USA Biathlon and USA Cross Country, and I start friend requesting them on Facebook. So, and then they start responding, and I'd send them a message, so I'm not a total stalker. It's like, you know, hey, I'm a volunteer, blah, blah, blah. And then I reached out to the to USA Biathlon, the governing body, and USA Cross Country, and reached out to their executive director and just sent him a note, and we responded back and forth. Well, then it came down to the fact that I need a visa, and so the visa I needed to get over there, it's a humanitarian visa for the length of the Olympic Games, and so sure enough, in true Russian fashion, like I never got my visa letter. You get this telex number, and I never got my visa letter till like 5 days before I was supposed to go over there. So I'm sweating bullets because I have my ticket to over there, no visa, and so I reached out to the USA Skiing and USA Biathlon. They said, hey, here's this company that processes visas for you. So thank God I went to them, and then they had some other thing, which is a tourist visa, where if you have a ticket and you have a place, so I had this backup plan, and like all of a sudden in my inbox comes my visa letter, and it all worked out. I expedited it. It cost me an extra couple $100, and and like 3 days before I headed to Russia, I had my visa back. So that was one funny thing. So that's kind of the process. And so the comment for you guys, if you're crazy enough to do what I did for Rio, or for the next Winter Olympics, which is in South Korea, that's what you have to do. You have to volunteer. What I didn't know, once again being overly optimistic, 200,000 people applied for volunteers. Did anybody hear that number? So, and I had no conception. And so the people that were wearing these goofy shirts and the goofy blue jackets that you guys probably saw on TV, so there's 25,000 volunteers over there. And I guess 90% were Russian. So of the Americans, I only counted, in where I lived in this apartment complex where I was living, I probably only encountered less than 10 Americans, maybe 6. So it's like there were some, so we were the international volunteers. So there were some Canadians, some people from Britain. I saw one guy from Pakistan. He was just coming in for the Paralympics as I was leaving. But just very few people from the U.S., which was kind of, so it was just kind of, you know, it's kind of upsetting. So, but the Russian people treated me like gold. You know, they treated me so well, and I'll get into some more of that as we go along. But I guess I was kind of an anomaly to them. They were an anomaly to me. So that's kind of how the process started. So I'm going to kind of jump around here. Anybody have any questions right off the bat? Anybody have any questions about that? So right about this time, all the U.S. news was just nothing but doomsday. And so everybody in the world was like, oh, are you sure you want to go? Are you sure? I'm like, my theory on this was, I got a better chance surviving this than I do driving down 270. I mean, that was my mentality that I took. But I towards the end, I was kind of snappy at people because everyone would say the same thing, you know, hey, are you worried? Yeah, I was, but I wanted to put it behind me. I wanted to go with the Olympic spirit. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. So that's what I did. So my wife takes me to the airport. Off I go, fly from here to New York City to Moscow. So I get to Moscow, have a little layover, and I'm waiting at my gate. And all of a sudden you start seeing, you know, people showing up. So I'm sitting next to this guy, and he was from the Associated Press. So this guy he's a writer from the Associated Press. And he's like, you ever been to the Olympics before? I'm like, no. He's like, oh, I've been to all kinds of them, you know. And we start talking, you know, he's been to the Tour de France and covered the Tour de France. So he's like, you'll have no problem. So I'm like starting to feel a little bit better. Oh, going back to the part before I was coming over. So in my recruiting world, one of the guys I was talking to, he used to work for Vice President Al Gore. He said, and he said to me, he said, hey, you're going over here. Take this number. This is my cell phone number. If you ever have any problem, this guy was serious too. So if you ever have any problem, call me. So I took his number, but thank God I never had to call him. So We fly from Moscow into, it's called Sochi Adler. So now I'm going to get into some things. So this Olympics was supposed to be in Sochi, Russia. So if you look on a map, Sochi is on the Black Sea, and then just a little bit down the coast is a town called Adler. So when you would see the Olympic Park, so if you think of the Olympic Park, think of it as a miniature, like Ohio State Fair, but really, really small. So, and is that what it looked like on TV? So it was this like little park. I think it looked big to me. It was probably a couple square miles, maybe like 4 OSU ovals put together. So it's that small. So we were staying in like an apartment complex. So none of the apartments, like what you saw, none of the apartments were done. So I was working up in the mountain, but we're living in the coastal village, and it was a 3-hour commute, but we'll get to that one too. So we were staying in a town called Vesolio, which was right by the Olympic Park. So the Olympic Park was in a town called Adler. And Adler is about 45 minutes from Sochi. So it had nothing to do with Sochi, but Sochi's kind of like the Russian Riviera. And I went there, and it ain't all that, but that's a whole different story. We'll get into that one later in the thing. So, so Adler's this little town, and they built this park, and they built like short track and long track, the hockey arena. So they built all these buildings kind of just in this circle, and then there was like an amusement park. Did you see the amusement park on TV? It was never even open. It's like they got stuff about 3/4 done and then never finished some things. So it was, but it was in Adler, and then the rest of the games were in a town like 45 minutes by train, hour by train, in a town called Krasna Polyana, and that was it was beautiful. It was beautiful beyond belief. It's like, if you ever been to Crested Butte, who here's been to Crested Butte? So, Crested Butte, you go up this road and you dead end into Crested Butte. That's kind of what Krasna Polyana was. So you dead ended into this town, and there were some other little towns. So you take one gondola up, and it was the ski jump. One gondola up, it was the extreme park. One gondola up was a downhill. And then my gondola up was to the Laura cross country and biathlon venue. What I didn't really realize is, who here's heard of biathlon? Biathlon. So I mean, we're the 90% of these people here are cyclists, so you may have heard it. But in Russia, it's like biathletes are like rock stars. That they'd be like a baseball player would be here in the United States. So biathlon is they cross country ski, get their heart rate up to about 210. Then they come in and they have to shoot targets. And if you miss a target, you have to take a penalty lap. So it's a real exciting sport because you're mixing two different things. But and so like the Russian girls, like they knew the whole men's biathlon team. So the U.S. team, they knew all the guys' names. And it's like, I don't know their names, you know what I mean? And like the Russians were just crazy about it. But it's like Russian, Belarus, Norway, the Scandinavian countries. It's huge. So this Laura ski area that I was at, they needed a lot of volunteers there, and so we'll kind of go into the commuting, and we'll get to that one too. But it was just, the mountain was spectacular. It was just beautiful. Colorado's beautiful. It was a little rockier than Colorado, and we had phenomenal weather. It was like 40, 50 degrees, sunny. It was just a really beautiful place. It wasn't real good conditions to ski in, but that's a whole different thing. Stepping back, I might jump around, so I apologize in advance. Arriving in Sochi, so I had these directions printed out. So it's like, okay, you got to go to accreditations. It's like here, and it's like, so they were all written in Russian. So I had Russian. And then I had Google Translate, then I cut and pasted the English underneath it. So I'm like, man, if I get to the airport, then I got to figure out how to get to like the accreditation and do all these things. So I was just like, I walk out of the airport and I'm just like, man, here we go. And I see these two girls there with Glen Gardner on a card. I'm like, hallelujah. So turns out these were two of my teammates. One's name was Dasha, one's name was Anna. And they're from Siberia. My whole team was from Siberia. It's a university called Surreal University in Siberia. One day I may go. But so they had been there a few days earlier, and they were here to get me through. So they got me through. We got on a bus. We get back to the Olympic Park, and they get my credentials. And then they walk me through to get all my clothes. These clothes that we got, and you probably saw it. So they probably gave us $1,000 worth of clothes. We got 3 shirts, we got a jacket, we got like another jacket, we got ski pants, boots, gloves, hats, other hats, long underwear. Literally about $1,000 worth of stuff, and it's from a company called Bosco. Bosco, and we'll go into the Bosco thing. Well, that's. What's that?
Does the long underwear look like that?
No, the long underwear doesn't look like that. But if it did, we could raffle that off too. So long story short, so Dasha and Anna got me through this thing, and then they take us to our apartment. So it's like there was 3 apartment buildings. You know, there was 2 here, and everything, you got to go through security to get to everything. So it had a security thing. There were 2 here. There was a little cafeteria, they called it the canteen, that was in between those 2. And then there was a 3rd building over here. So I march into, they take me into the, into where you get your housing. And once again, you know, I'm an anomaly because I'm from the US, and they just like, they take care of me. They're like, we're gonna put you in an international room. So I was like the last person there. So our room was and you probably saw the pictures on Facebook. So our room was a little apartment flat, probably, I don't know, maybe 1,200 square feet. And it was 3 bedrooms, a little tiny kitchenette, you know, just this big, and then like a toilet, and then like a tub. And the funny part was, and you probably saw the pictures, so the tub, I guess 2 weeks before this, there was no plumbing in the whole building. So they took these tubs, they put them on feet, they didn't attach them to the wall, and they put like this fishing line up, put this, and a shower curtain, and then it had like a handheld thing. So the tub, I mean the tub, and so you had to basically take a shower, so you'd adjust the water, and you'd like stand with your back towards the thing, and then there was water that would like spill out over the tub, and it was a hot mess, to tell you the truth. And so in the rooms there were 3 people in this one, 3 people in this one, and mine I was the last man in, so it was me, and I had the room with 4 people, and I had the worst bed in the place because I was the last person. It was me, this Chinese guy, his name is Key. He couldn't speak a whole lot of English. He was the funniest guy you could ever meet. So it was Key, and then I had 2 Brits. The other room was a Canadian. There was an American guy, but he's been the past 25 years in France. He's the COO of Disney in Paris. Just a super, super nice guy. And another Brit, and then the other one was another American, and a Canadian, and I think another Brit. So once guy's the only American in there. But my roommates, once again, fantastic. I think, as you guys know, if you were going to a university, or you're going to some kind of a thing where everybody has the same common interest, one person was nicer than the next. I mean, I just cannot explain to you how nice everybody was and how fun everyone was, and because everybody was all in this thing together. So that was meeting my roommates. Then we went over to eat at the canteen. So the food, everybody says, oh, Glenn, you lost weight. So it's like, I think I lost about 8 pounds when I was over there. So you probably saw some of the food that I placed. But the food, to say the food was horrendous would be an understatement. So typical breakfast. Who here's had a blintz? Blintzes are great, right, over here. Over there they're called blini. and it's a little thicker. It's a little thicker wrapper, and you get 4 blintzes, and then you get a thing of Dannon yogurt, which was awesome, and you get a roll. So the athletes, I'm sure they got fed really well. Actually, they told me they got fed really well. The volunteers, we didn't get fed that well. So we'd have blini, yogurt, and then we'd have this, they call it porridge. It was oatmeal, like this instant oatmeal. So if you get one with the pink top, it's good. But so the first day I didn't get the pink top, I get the one with the brown top. So this was, this was oatmeal with chicken and mushroom flavored. So, and that was just, it's like, if you're eating it at dinner and you're prepared for chicken, it's tolerable. For breakfast, but these blini, this was a whole other, so every day you didn't know what you're gonna bite into when you got your blini. So, the cheese ones, like a cheese blintz, fantastic, fantastic. You put some jelly on there, it'd be good, you could choke it down. So then one day I like bit into it, and it was like caramel. Sounds kind of good, but like 4 of these things, you can eat about one or 2 bites of this caramel blini. I didn't like that. Then one, so next morning I come in, bite into one, and it was like meat. It was like a burrito. So once again, if you were going to dinner and going to get a burrito, it was like this ground beef. So the meat ones weren't that good.
Is that why none of your pictures had overweight Russians?
No, no.
This was just left over from the night before, whatever they.
No, they just made them. They made them every day, and then every once in a while, what was some other things? Oh, and then a few times it wasn't blini day. It was these like bologna-looking hot dogs. They were about this big, and they were like the color of Heidi's shirt. You know, they were just like, and I couldn't even fathom eating that one. So I just went for 2 yogurts and one of these rolls that were in just a plastic wrap. So that was eating at the canteen, and then lunch and dinner were a joy too. So lunches was always some kind of soup and some kind of potato dish with meat every day. So the soup was like borscht soup, like cabbage or beet soup with like some chicken and maybe some potatoes in there. Usually I could choke down the soup. And then whatever the other dish would be, it would be like, you know, maybe meat with like some vegetables and like and potatoes. And that was all good. So, and then dinner was pretty much the same as lunch. And then every once in a while we'd get these like, they'd have like these tubes that looked like liverwurst in like a tube. And I skipped that one too. They would spread it, and then their bread was disgusting. It was stale, and it was hard, and so their bread wasn't that good. But one day, we were up at the mountain working second shift, and we actually had china at this place, and we had like, so for breakfast we had like, they gave us 3 hard-boiled eggs, a little piece of cheese, some stale bread. It was quite delicious. So the food was pretty horrendous. I guess now I'm going to get into the stray dog story. So everybody hear about the stray dogs? So there's a friend of ours. Her name's Peggy Kaplan. So she's a big animal activist, and she actually posted if anybody wanted to rescue a dog, she would pay whatever fees, and Peggy would be happy to pay for any fee. That's what she does. She has a whole foundation set up to this. So I specifically didn't post any of the pictures of the dogs because of Peggy. The real kicker was, so I'm driving from the Olympic Park in the bus, and we're driving down. It's kind of like a Bethel Road area. So we're going down this thing. We're making a left turn. I look over, and I see this little grassy strip that's like about as big as this area, and I see 3 horses in there. I go, well, that's kind of odd. It's like, so there's like 3 horses. So, and we drive on, and I kind of keep that in the back of my mind. So the next morning, I'm coming out of my apartment because I'm in building 3. I got to go through a security thing to get to the canteen, and so amongst the stray dogs, I see a stray horse coming like eating food. So I'm just like walking, and I'm like, there's a stray horse. So it was kind of crazy. If you look at my Facebook page, I think I just shared a picture of at the bus stop that we used to go to. There was 2 horses and a dog trying to pick up some food, but the dogs were really taken well care of for all intents and purposes. And if you want to adopt a dog out of Sochi, there were 2 on the airplane. Apparently, it's pretty easy to do.
You weren't worried about rabies or anything in stray dogs?
I didn't worry about anything. So that's if you worry about anything. So I was just like,
I guess I wasn't worried about you. You stayed away from
no, I didn't.
the third world. It's like rabies is a huge deal.
Really? See, that's why I'm not a doctor. You know what I mean? I'm an optimistic guy. So.
Yeah, what you don't know won't hurt you.
What and really, you know, innocence.
You ever heard about those big shots in your belly?
No. So, one of my first days there, I was told I had to go to this international volunteer training at the main Olympic headquarters, which was just right outside the Olympic Park. So, kind of had a day off. So, they say I had to go there at like 10. So I get there at 9, and there was just like. Every place you go, let me get back onto the security thing. So, one thing Putin did, he said he didn't want any kind of issues with security, and apparently there was, you know, fighting like right across the border in Georgia. I mean, I really didn't know much about it. Once again, innocence is bliss, and so everywhere you go, you had to present your credentials, and then anywhere you went into, there was just like what you do at the airport. So it was a full metal detector, put your bag through the x-ray machine, but then it's full body frisk. So it's like full body frisk everywhere, front, back, legs. I mean, these people weren't screwing around. So there were 25,000 volunteers like myself that were wearing these crazy outfits. There were 10,000 paid security people. They were wearing purple. I don't know if you saw any of the purple outfits similar to ours. There were 10,000 of them, but then there was police. So there was police, regular Russian police. There's police everywhere. And then there was the undercover guys. So I'd say there was probably 25,000 security people there too. So going along security, so just everywhere. So that was the other thing. You can't drink the water, so that's one thing I didn't do is drink the water. And so the first day there, I was like dehydrated, you know. So I get there, I'm in these lines going there, and I'm like totally dehydrated. So I'd buy water, and then like I went up to this store to buy water, and I bought mineral water. It's like, oh, I hate mineral water, but I was drinking it anyways. And then when you go through security, you have to throw away your water. So it's like I was like throwing away water all the time. It was just really brutal. Along the same lines of security, when I take the train ride from the Olympic Park up to the mountain, or a bus ride, along the train, like let's say you were coming to the bridge, you'd see a guard on the front of the bridge. You'd see a guard at the back of the bridge. You'd say there was a power pole. You'd see a guard there. I probably saw no less than just 100 guards in a 40. It was like a 50-kilometer, so a 30-40 mile stretch of road. I probably saw no less than 100 guards and like army people and just all kinds of people just standing out there guarding stuff. So I got to feel pretty secure when I was over. I never felt scared of anything. So back to my first day going to this international volunteer training. So it was like Fort Knox getting in this place. And they have to get your name in, so nobody can figure out my name because it's American, you know what I mean? So I got in there, and of course, there's nobody in the whole Russian system that's ever heard of the Wharton School. It's like, if you're like a Six Sigma process person, you're going to have a meltdown there. It was the most inefficient place I'd ever seen, and we'll get into a little bit of that too. But so long story short, my 10 o'clock meeting, they're like, oh no, it's going to be this, and so I hung around, and then I had some time off, so I walked over to the Olympic Park. This is before the Olympics were on. And just started walking around the Olympic Park. So I'm like, hey, I got credentials. I'm gonna go try to see short track, speed skate. I'm gonna try to see their practice. So I go in there and they're like, no, you know, wrong credentials. So I says, well, I'm kind of host here. So I get on a bus, which I wasn't supposed to be on. So I got on this bus to take a trip around the Olympic Park. And so, you know, I'm just kind of keep it on the DL. And so we get to the stop and where the athletes live, and like a half dozen athletes get on. Well, two of the athletes were J.R. Selsky, who's America's biggest hope, and Kyle Carr, and I know who they are.
Did you say he was America's biggest hope?
Hope. So I'm on the bus, and I go over to him, and once again, when you're American, there's no other Americans. Americans love to talk to other Americans because we're like, so I start talking to them, and we're kind of riding around and just, you know, hearing how the ice is. The ice was bad because the ice was soft. The figure skaters like soft ice. The speed skaters like harder ice. So the same stuff, but they were nice as could be, and I took a picture of them and put it on Facebook. And then there was some Israeli figure skater and her partner, and she was about this big and about this big around, and she lives in New Jersey. So, but she's Israeli, and I got to meet her, and then I went back and looked it up, and they were really nice. But that was kind of cool that I got to see J.R. Selsky. Getting to the mountain every day. So this was the crux of the whole thing. So they never finished enough housing to house all the people at the mountain, so they're housing us at the coastal village. So every day, so we'd start at our apartment, and we'd have to go stand at a bus stop right there.
What time were you getting up in the morning to do that?
It just depended. It was 3 hours before I needed to be up there. So you go there, and then we take a bus ride, probably a 10-minute bus ride to the Olympic Park. And then, so they drop you off here at the Olympic Park, and then there was I Strava'd it. I put a Strava. So all that's the other thing. So when I went over there, I have a Verizon phone, which is locked. So I didn't have an unlocked phone, so I was planning on buying a cell phone when I went over there. So I bought a cell phone, a little cheap Android, because I figured if I have internet connection and an Android phone, I can at least navigate, use Google Translate. Well, that phone, it didn't work. So, and then luckily the next day, my good friend, what was her name? Xenia. So I went back, I'm like, this phone doesn't work, will you take it back? She's like, yeah. So Xenia hooked me up on the phone. So I bought another Android phone, and it was kind of a piece of crap, but I got to work it easy there, Van. Van's an Apple guy. So I had a phone which was like my safety blanket. And so I wish I would have bought a good Android phone over here with a SIM, and then I could have bought the SIM card over there, but that's a whole another nightmare. So I did get my phone. Yeah. So getting to the mountain, so they drop you off to Olympic Park, and you had two choices. You could go take the train. The train was really nice because you could stretch out. There was room until more people came, then there wasn't much room. But to get to the train, it left every half hour, and you had to go through security to get to the train. So then the train ride would be about 45 minutes. And then you'd get to the train station, then there'd be a 20-minute walk from the train station to the bottom of the gondola at the Laura Cross Country venue. It was just brutal. It was a brutal walk. Then you'd go up there, and then if you had to walk up to the mountain. So the whole round trip was about 2.5 on a good day, 3 hours on a bad day. So that really put a damper on things. And if you didn't catch the train, you could walk another 10 minutes, and there was a bus station, and buses left every 15 minutes, and you didn't have to go through security to get on the bus, and you have to go through security when you get to the mountain. So there's a whole called a clean zone and a dirty zone, if you look up at that. So they made it so you would be in this clean zone for a lot of spaces, so you're basically have been cleared. So just another one of my there was all kinds of just goofy stories that happened. So one day I'm riding up the train, and my Russian counterparts would want to be there a half hour early, so that they'd get up, they'd be at the mountain a half hour early, and then they'd sit around about 2 hours doing nothing. So I'm like, you know, I got enough time here. I'm going to try to, you know, use my efficiencies, which efficiencies weren't too good up there. So I'm riding the train up by myself and see some American guy. So he's sitting, you know, across from me. We start talking, where are you from? Well, I'm from, you know, Huntington Beach, California. What do you do? Well, I'm an agent for all the snowboarders. This guy's like, he's like Jerry Maguire for the snowboarders. And he looks like Spicoli, you know, he's like this surfer dude, snowboarder, messed up hair, he reeked of vodka, he was all hungover. And so we just got to talking. He's like, oh yeah, I'm Louis Vito's agent. Do you know him? You know, I told him I was from Columbus. He's like, yeah, I've been to Bellefontaine, I've been to Columbus, you know. So it's just like every interaction I have is just some kind of weird, surreal connections. This guy's like, oh yeah, his dad owns a radio station out in Columbus. He like looks it up on his, you know, on his phone. It's like, oh yeah, Louis Vito's dad owns this radio station. You guys know who Louis Vito is? He's the snowboarder that's from Bellefontaine.
So to be fair, that's not really an Olympic specific thing for you. That's your life.
That is a good point. It's my life, but it just got. So going into the next story about goofy interactions. So I tried to keep up on my business a little bit. But internet was like super sparse. So in the canteen they'd have internet connection, but you'd also have 18 million people in it, so it like didn't work. So long story short, there's a company I'm doing business with in England, and they needed me to sign a contract. Well, I have this digital signing, so I signed it digitally. It was a pain in the butt to do. Had to get someone to witness me, so I got the COO from Disney to witness it. Send it over to me. He says, we can't take digital signatures in London. I'm like, you guys are killing me. So I says, I'm going to go, when I'm at the mountain, I'm going to go into the town that Krasna Polyana. There's a town right up there. It's called Rosa Kutur. And it was, so I go in there after work. Like I got off work at like 6 o'clock. I went into Rosa Kutur to find a hotel. And so what do? So I go to the hotel. I'm like, give me a beer and give me a hamburger and French fries. The hamburger on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to here was like a 2. It was like the most delicious thing I've had for weeks. So next to me is some good old boy from Iowa. So I'm sitting next to this guy from Iowa. He's got this long hair. He's about your size. He's giant. He's probably 6'6", probably 250. And he goes, you know, like, well, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. You know, where are you from? Ohio. Oh, I'm from Iowa. See, he like played like Division II football for some team in Iowa, and he works lighting. So they're the company. So he goes, oh, you know those temporary lights we put outside of the Horseshoe Stadium? That's me. I'm like, no way. He's like, yeah. He says, but you guys put up new lights, so now we're out of there. He goes, you know what my favorite place in all of Columbus is? He goes, the Roosters on Old Tansy River Road. So I'm in Rosa Kutur, Russia, talking about the Roosters on Old Tansy River Road, and Eddie George is on High Street with this good old boy football player from Iowa. So it gets worse. It gets worse from here. So he goes, hey, we're going to go out partying. Do you want to go? So what do I say? Absolutely, right? So it's like 11 o'clock, and they were going to the next town down. It's called Estacidok. There was like a bar called the Sky Bar. So, and I got to watch the time because the last bus and train leaves at like 1. So we go to the Sky Bar, and I'm dressed like this, or you know, I'm dressed like this with my backpack with all kinds of stuff in there. But so we go in there, you know, same metal detector, full frisk. And I go in there, and when I go out, I try to buy the first round of drinks because you just never know. You know, you buy the first round of drinks, you never know what's going to happen. So I bought, there was 4 of us. So I bought four shots of vodka, and we drink that. And then this good old boy, he goes up to the bar, and so he's working there. He's got an account. So does he bring back 1 shot of vodka for everybody? Oh no, he brings back 2 drinks. He brings vodka and Red Bull. And the last time I drank vodka and Red Bull was my bachelor party that didn't end well. So I'm not much. So long story short, so he gives us 2 drinks, and then I drink 1 and I gave it to the good old boy, and he drank that one. Then his friend gives us another round, and by this time it's like midnight, and I got to get back to the bus. So I'm like, I'm out of here. But it was pretty cool. It was like this disco club with a band, and it was fun, but I didn't have much time. So another funny story.
Did you ever get your contract signed?
Well, no. So, no, that's a good question. So,
For the record, your bachelor party, I remember it was fine.
yeah, feeding the homeless. I think I printed it out there, and then I went to another hotel, but no. So, because I'll get to that one if I don't, remind me. So one thing he said, he's like, yeah, these Russians, once again, planning is not really their strong point, and we went. He said they thought they could get the lighting done themselves. Long story short, they couldn't get the lighting done themselves. They called them last minute. They had to. The guy told me they had to charter 3 747s to get these lights over, to the tune of $600,000. So that's a whole other story. Seeing events. Let me jump over here. Long time no see, man. How you been? Good. So I made this little board here. So I did. So on my days off. One, you never knew when your day off was, because I had a schedule before I went over there, and so I bought one ticket to short track before I left, and but when I went over there, the schedule was just thrown out the door. It's like, and I said, well, what is my schedule? And so I would get a text at like midnight or 1 in the morning, say, okay, tomorrow we have to be at the lower hub at Laura. We're at the top of the mountain. It's like they didn't figure out that you can send group emails. They didn't figure out that you could send group text. So finally, about 1 week to go, I finally figured out which days I had off and which days I didn't have off. But it was just crazy. So long story short, on my first day off, it happened to have a short track event and a long track event. So I'm like, I'm over. I don't care what the hell the ticket costs. So I go up to the booth before there, buy a ticket to short track, and it's like they only had the most expensive ticket there. It was like 5,000 rubles, which is like $150. I'm like, whatever. Here's the Visa, because it only take Visa. So I got that, and my first seat was like right in the photographer area. So it was just phenomenal. And so I watched that, and then right after that ended, you just have no clue what's happening. So I figured out that long track was starting like 40 minutes after short track ended. And so you basically walk out of short track, and the long track building is like right next door. So like 100 yards away is the long track. So I went in there, and it was the men's 500 meter long track. I'd say half the building was Dutch. It was like all orange. They really take their long track seriously, and the Dutch swept the podium.
It was Dutch National Championship, wasn't it?
Yeah, they definitely put on a clinic, and so it was neat seeing long track. But there's nothing like, I mean, I'm biased, I'm a short tracker, but just to watch the two events, it's night and day. Short track's fun. So shifting gears, so I did get to see quite a few events. So the events I saw 3 days of short track, 2 days of long track. I had a free ticket to biathlon and watched one of those. Then I watched, we had a free ticket to women's downhill, and we went to that. And then when I left women's downhill, I was already at the mountain. I didn't want to drive 3 hours back, and women's half pipe was starting. So I went to, it was sold out. So I'm standing there like, well, it started at 2, and they said, well, they might release some tickets at 2. So I'm talking to a volunteer in the goofy shirt. I stayed about 2:15, and there were no tickets. I'm getting ready to leave, and then the volunteer comes running after me. Somebody was there, and they had an extra ticket, and they were scalping it. And so she sold it to me at face value, but it was a front row ticket for women's half pipe. So it was 5,000 rubles. Rubles? Yeah, whatever they are. I don't know what they are.
Did you have cash with you?
And I just went to the bank, so I had like a 5,000 ruble bill, and then like that was it. That was all the money I had. So I'm like, here you go. So I go down there and sit in the front row, and there was these two like pretty good-looking Russian women like sitting right next to me. They're like, first thing they says, "Would you like a beer?" I'm like, what a great country. So I'm like, I don't have any money, you know, I have a visa. So I'm like, well, you want me to buy? They're like, no, you're our guest. I mean, and so they got me a beer, and so I was, the half pipe, the extreme park was really neat. So the half pipe was here, the men's area was here, and the moguls were right here. So it's just 3 like chutes, and there's just one grandstand. I was in the front row of the grandstand, and people there were just, once again, fantastic. A little bit more Americans. A little bit more about the extreme park. My roommate from Canada, his name is Guy. He had worked these events in Canada before, so he was in charge of the finish area at the half pipe, and he needed people. He needed English-speaking people to help him out. So I could have had front row seats working there instead of the Laura Bathlon. My people wouldn't let me out. I was like furious. So I could have been working the finish area at the half pipe, but that didn't work out. And finally I was like, the more you just go with the flow, the better. And you can tell I got a bad cough over there, so this talking's hurt me a little bit. I feel much better today. Another fun, surreal event. So we get done working. We work in the morning shift at the cross-country venue, and they had like this tent set up behind the place we visit, and the U.S. versus Russia hockey game was on. So like, oh, we're having a party, so they bring out like beer and donuts, and I'm like, well, all right, well at least there's beer, and I like donuts too, so figured whatever. Well, it turns out the beer was near beer. So we're drinking near beer and donuts, watching the U.S. versus Russia. Well, this is the one that came down to a shootout. So how many Americans did I say were up there? So there was me and my friend, my half French guy that works at Euro Disney or Paris Disney. So he's kind of a half-breed. So, but we stuck together. So they're just screaming. Everybody's screaming, just going crazy about this thing. And it comes down to shoot up. So we're like, you know, the 2 people are like, yay! And then when we won the shootout, the place got pretty silent, and we emptied that place out. But that was a really, really strange dynamic. It was really fascinating seeing. I mean, you got a whole room full of 100 different Russian people, and me and a guy that's been over in France for 25 years. So that was another fun story. A couple days later, I'm taking the train back up to the mountain where I spent all my time is on the train or the bus. And so Adler's here, then the next station is the Olympic Park, so people would get on there. So it was a pretty full train that day, and I'm sitting here, and I see like some movie cameras coming on, some people with their U.S. Olympic team jackets. So I'm like, well, I figure they're athletes. And so they had a big entourage with them. They had like NBC Olympics was there, and there was like a girl that was an intern. So I was talking to her. I'm like, you know, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. I'm from Connecticut. I'm an intern with NBC. Where are you from? Columbus, Ohio. Oh, I used to date a guy from Dublin. I'm like, how's it happen? How's it happen? So-and-so, he was in the NFL. Oh, what's his name? So-and-so, like some African name. So it was Brady Quinn's wide receiver from Dublin. Do you know who I'm talking about? Do you know? But he was like, so Brady, it was Brady Quinn's buddy from Dublin. He was like a wide receiver. So she dated him. So I was like, well, introduce me to the hockey players. So it was, I don't know much about hockey. So it was Brooks Oprich and Paul Martin from the Pittsburgh Penguins. You know, apparently these are pretty good hockey players. So I go up and talk to them, and like the day before, I was in this room with all these Russians. So I had some videos on my phone. So first question they asked me is, how'd you get to be a volunteer? You know, these guys are more interested in my crazy story than I am. And I don't, you know, and over there, it's a level playing field. If you're from the U.S., you're from the U.S. It doesn't mean that I'm this elite hockey player. They were nice as could be, and then we took a picture and posted on Facebook, and off I went. That was a fun story. One of the next days, I went to another short track, event, and one of the skaters that we know, his name is Jordan Malone. When Jordan, his very first year skating, when we had nationals up in Cleveland, he was a world champion on inline, so he's a pretty accomplished skater. His first year, he sat with our team, him and his mom. He's just a good old boy from Texas, and so as the event was over, I ran into his mom, and we Facebook messaged back and forth with his mom and with Jordan, and she said, "Oh, hey, we're all going to eat after this." So I had nothing to do, so I tag along with them. So we had dinner, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to get interviewed by NBC in Texas," so that they invite me along. So it's like his aunt, his friends, so like all these people. So we go over to like where like the Today Show is. There's like the Today Shows right here, and there was like E! Entertainment. So they had all these like little like kiosks of these things, and so it was raining out that day too. So we went there and did the interview, and then they were going to the Procter & Gamble family house, and she's like, I don't know if I'll be able to get you in because, you know, we're already full on our guests, but maybe we can juggle something. So I was hanging out with them for a couple hours, and then we went to the Procter & Gamble house, but I couldn't get in. So I said, hey, thanks, and went on my merry way. But it was kind of neat hanging out with Jordan and his family, you know, because he kind of, you get the inside scoop on what's happening, you know, with the speed skaters. So I don't know if you know this, so that there's the Russian skater Victor An. Did you guys see him? So he was a South Korean skater. He was the one that was competing against Apollo in the '06 Olympics, and then in 10 he got injured, and he basically, there's such depth in Korea that he didn't make the team, and they kind of pushed him to the side because he was injured. Apparently Russia paid him $1 million. So long story short, Russia paid him $1 million to come skate for him. And I think he won 2 golds and a bronze or something. I mean,
He won a medal in every.
yeah, he won a medal in every event. So it was just kind of neat to hear the fact that, you know, this is the inside scoop. And then there was some turmoil within U.S. speed skating that I knew about, and you know, I kind of got the inside scoop on.
Did you get any inside scoop on the suits?
You know, I didn't even ask about the suits. That was kind of I thought that was kind of a BS thing. I mean, I didn't even ask about the suits. I don't think they didn't really care about the suits.
The team chokes and they need something to blame.
Yeah. Going back to but kind of wrap this thing up. Going back to some other highlights of the event. Did you see the post about the Barnes twins? Did anybody see my post about? There's these 2 biathletes. If you look it up, just Google the Barnes twins. There's these 2 U.S. biathlete women, and they're both former Olympians, but one made the team and the other one was sick. But the one that was sick was really the better of the 2, and the one gave up her spot for the other one, and she was the next in line. And so that day I was at the biathlon center, behind the biathlon center, working, like guarding the media booth. And so the lady that runs, she used to run media for U.S. speed skating, so we were friends on Facebook somehow. And so she comes up here with these 2, the Barnes twins, and she's like, oh, hey, you're Glen Gardner, we're connected through Facebook and Tony, blah, blah, blah. And so I started talking to these two girls, these Barnes girls, and I'd read their story before I came, and then I watched their interview, and really go out and just Google their name and watch an interview with this. I mean, if it don't bring you to tears, I don't know. So I talked to them for about 10 minutes before their interview. Then I stayed. I watched their interview like right behind the cameraman. I mean, it was really phenomenal. So that was like one of my high points, was meeting them. Another high point was watching the men's short track relay when they got the silver medal. So they really got a lucky break, because on the first corner, if you fall before the apex block, the middle block, they'll call the race back and restart it. But it was like really close. They didn't call it, and so 3 teams fell. So it was basically USA and Russia, and so Russia led. USA was drafting the whole time, and then the last lap, they were passing someone from Kazakhstan. He really got in the way, and J.R. Selsky couldn't get around Victor on. But they got a silver medal, and it was just like, I mean, to watch that was phenomenal. And then I had really good seats for that too, and I'd walk down, you know, to the medal ceremony. I see these people with the U.S. flag around it. I go, oh, well, you know, where are you from? They're like, oh, we're from Miami. I'm like, oh, really? They're like, oh yeah, our son's Eddie Alvarez, and once again, we knew Eddie Alvarez when he was like this big. You know, he was just this really little kid. Now he's just a phenomenal skater. But we watched him grow up. And then when they won, and then they did the flower ceremony, to watch Eddie come up, I mean, it's like bringing tears to my eyes right now. To see him come up to his mom and dad to give him a hug, it was like, it was really, 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 it was really phenomenal. Sorry about that. I'm kind of getting emotional about that. But talking to them, getting some pictures, and watching Eddie and seeing them get their medal ceremony, that was pretty phenomenal. Let's see, shifting gears to a lighter thing. One night we there was like a hotel, I mean a bar, like right around the corner from where we were staying, and we go there, and the next thing you know, this guy comes over with like a pitcher of wine. He gives us wine, so I'm like, well, here we go. So, and then the next thing you know, like they're out dancing, and his wife's, and so long story short, wine is the international whatever of friendship. They didn't speak any English. Apparently they were Armenian. So it's like Russia's here, then there's Georgia, and then Armenia is below that. So, and then I gave him, are you familiar with this pin trading? Anybody heard of this pin trading? So thank God when my buddies Jeff Cashman told me about pins, and so I bought I bought 100 pins before I went over there. So I bought these little heart-shaped US flags. I paid 99 cents a piece for these things. If I would have bought 400 of them, I would have given out 400. They were like better than currency. So I asked the guy permission. So this guy was like the Dom, you know what I mean? He was like the godfather of this bar. And it was just one of those more surreal moments of us dancing with these Armenians, drinking homemade wine and beers over there. But I had some pins on me and gave them to all the females, and they were happy. And then but I asked permission first. So and then when they left, you know, we figured this was just wine. When they left, they pulled up this jug of like homemade wine, you know, from this bucket, and like gave us this wine. But then I remember at the international training, that was way back here. Remember I told you I went to international training? Like, don't drink the moonshine. Whatever you do, don't drink the moonshine. We're like, oh shit, I guess we drank the moonshine. So, but that was a fun thing. And you know, going back to this pin trading, so a lot of people were big on trading pins. I just didn't really want to hassle with it, but like I gave away a lot of pins, like the lady that helped me with my cell phone, I gave her a pin. I mean, she's happy as could be. Someone helped me in the train station, I gave him a pin. I mean, I did get a bunch of pins. I mean, I got some pins. Like I met Keegan Randall's dad. He gave me that. You know, some Russian biathlon stuff. Canadian guy. Well, one pin I got, I think I posted this on Facebook. So another surreal story. So we're walking back the train station. It's like midnight, and I find this other U.S. ladies. So it's like if you're from the U.S., you're gonna travel all together. So some guards will frisk it for your pins too. So they're like, oh, what are these? And then you give them a pin and then you get through, but that's a whole different story. So this guard's like talking to this lady about this pin. She said, oh, here's this Schmucker's pin. Well, my wife's from Orrville, Ohio, where Schmucker's is. I hear Schmucker's, I'm like, this is like 2 days before Valentine's Day. I says, I gotta have that pin. I said, I don't care what happens, I gotta have that pin. So we had to, like, at midnight, negotiate with this guard, like 2 other pins for his pin, so I get this Schmucker's pin to give to my wife. So that was just another of those weird stories that
Midnight with the Russian guards.
So that's kind of did that kind of give you a sample of my life for the past 3 anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Did you had to pay for your own flight there and back?
Yep.
But then they paid for
Correct.
housing such
Yep.
as it was and food such as it was.
Correct. So yeah, that's a really good point. So they provided me my luxurious accommodations and food, so and clothing. So was it a cheap vacation? I mean, the plane ticket was still pretty expensive, but you know you're going to pay that regardless. So you know that's another thing. It was kind of a sort of cheap vacation, but when it came to me buying the tickets, I did get a few tickets, but I had to pay for my tickets. But if it wasn't for my tickets, I didn't spend a lot of money because I just didn't have time to spend money. So.
Glenn, how long were your workshops?
Oh, you know, on paper, maybe 5 hours, maybe 6 hours, but it's like, you know, my work, like one day, like the first few days I was building fences and carrying fences around. They called me the Minister of Defense. I forgot to tell you that story. So I was like, after about the 3rd day, I was like, this sucks, man. I'm doing this carrying fences, so I can get a job with Kirk Albers now or Andis Burns building fences. So I know you have to put them up at an angle now, and so I was good at doing fences. And then when I was working up in the mountain, like one day I was like guarding access to something. They just put me there, and but I got to see the course. I got to see the athletes. It was awesome. So you know, maybe 5-6 hours, and then but other days, like when we're down at the bottom of the mountain, getting people on the gondola, directing traffic for like 6 hours in the freezing cold. That got to be a really long day with the 3-hour, you know, train ride both ways. So there were some long days of really not doing a whole bunch. Did that make sense?
Yeah. So how many days out of the, was it 14 that you worked?
I was there 3 weeks. I probably had 7 days. I don't really know. Probably about 7 days off. And then one day that we were supposed to work, since I had bought my ticket for the 21st, so I had like an extra day off, and it was good. There was a time in the middle I was calling my travel agent. I was ready to escape Russia. I mean, I was really I was like cracked, you know. It's just with the logistics and stuff. I was just like, there was a time early, just seeing all just the stupidity going on and the lack of management. I was seriously, I talked to my mother via Skype. I'm like, I think I'm gonna sneak out of Russia. You know, she was like, but once I got over that, I was like, you know, it's too hard. It's just too much logistics. So I hung around.
Joel would like to know if, when you were guarding things, you had a Kalashnikov.
What's
When you were
that?
assigned as a guard, did you have a Kalashnikov?
What? A gun? No. But there is another funny story. I posted this. So you basically everybody, all the spectators have accreditations too, and so spectators and the athletes. So one day we're guarding access to the back of the biathlon stadium, so you know only athletes and managers and stuff could come through. And so some drunk lady, a little short lady, blonde lady, comes storming through. She had this entourage with her. We're like, no, and so I'm with one of my teammates, Anna, so she stops her, you know, she's like, and they're just going at it in Russian. I'm just like, you know, I don't know what's going on. well, it turns out this lady was the winningest Russian bathlete ever. 6-time gold medalist, 5-time world record holder. So we didn't know who she was. She's like, you don't know who I am? So it'd basically be like telling Michael Jordan he can't go into a Bulls game. That's what we did. So on the train ride home, we get out the smartphone and like Google her name, and I pull it up, and it's like, you know, all the Russian people were laughing first. I'm like, well, what's the joke? Then they finally let me in, and so it was like this lady was like the winningest Russian bathlete ever, and we kept her out. Do you have a question?
I was curious, with the volunteers and with the security, was it a well-attended Olympics with regards to crowds?
That's another good question. I saw some reports that say it wasn't. The Russians were just, it was all Russian. Okay. I mean, yeah, there were a lot of people from, you know, there were a lot of people from Norway at the skiing events, and very few Americans over there. You know, there were a lot of Dutch at the speed skating, but really, you know, 80–90% of the crowd was Russian, and they were very proud. And this Bosco is kind of like North Face here. So whatever Bosco spent to outfit us in these great clothes, man, they made it back, because like the Russians love this stuff. The gaudier, the better. And so everybody would come there to the event with like the full Bosco kit. They'd have like the RU, I don't know if you saw the jacket, it says RU, like Russian Union, you know, Russian Olympic team. So like the husband and wife, they'd have matching like jackets, pants, shoes, hat. I mean, and in these Bosco stores, there was one in the Olympic Park. It was like a 2-hour line to get into. We went to Sochi. Sochi was just this little town. They tried to make it kind of South Beachy, kind of like Lincoln Avenue, but it was like a rundown Lincoln Avenue in South Beach. The Bosco store there had a line outside it. Adler, Bosco store, line out the door. So I went there to buy some crap, you know, because I was going over there. And I went the day after the Olympics closed. It was the only thing that was open in Olympic Park, so there was no line there when I went. But Bosco, man, the people love that stuff over there.
I was watching the cross country on TV in the biathlon. I don't think I've ever seen an Olympic venue on TV where I can see like every moment of the cross country race. I don't know if you knew that, but
yeah, the coverage was unbelievable.
Was it in a very tight area and just switchbacking everywhere?
No, I mean there was, and that was the thing. So I was up there putting fences up and walking in between and walking right. I mean, I was just right there. You know, in the early days, I'd be the people would be out practicing. I'd be right. It was awesome, and
there was like no snow, and then they trucked in snow for the course.
Yeah,
like rocks and the course.
Yeah, and I don't know how they maintained it, but I think that their coverage was, you know, I think they had, you know, snowmobiles, and then, you know, at the finish they had, you know, the cameras, you know, like we saw the finish area with the cameras, but to watch it on, like, to watch the biathlon in person, it was just chaos, but like to watch it on TV, it was a lot better. So I think from what I understand, the spectators had a great experience, and that's what the volunteers were there. They were there to make the spectators, and my teammates, once again, were just fantastic. They were there they were all so proud, so kind, and they were there as a representative of Russia in the Olympics. So it was my teammates, I can't reiterate enough how wonderful they were, just to everybody, but especially to me.
How did you get hooked up for the newspaper interview?
Good question. Once again, so my day in Rosa-Cooter to try to sign my contract, I found this like Italian restaurant. I'm like, I'm getting some real food, so I'm sitting at the bar eating, and the guy next to me was this reporter from the Globe or whatever,
Canada?
Yeah, from a newspaper in Canada. He says, hey, and he asked me my story, how'd you get here? You know, he liked my story. He says, you mind if I interview you? Here's, you know, I was like, yeah, here's my number. And so he's like, yeah, I'm working the cross country event in a couple days. I'll give you a call. And I was working at the base of the mountain that day. He gives me a call. I says, hey, I'll be up. We met at the top. He offered to buy me lunch. I'd just eaten some wonderful food. So he bought me an iced tea, and he did the interview. I thought it was a fairly accurate interview, too.
He said you were intelligent and successful.
I know. I put on a good act. I put on a good act.
Tell us about the party they gave you at the end, because you mentioned...
Oh, so yes. So just another goofy story. So it's like, so the last thing I want to do is drive 3 hours up to the mountain again. But they're like, oh, we're going to go to the mountain. They're going to give us some stuff. So like one day they gave us like a Swatch watch. So we go up. Yeah, they gave us a Swatch watch.
It still exists?
Yeah. So we go up there. And once again, just total disorganization. So we get up there, we stand around doing nothing for about 2 hours. And then we go up there and what was it? It was, so they give us like a pin, like a thank you pin from like the USOC or the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. And then they like do this flash mob thing. And it's like, this is just, I'm like, and so like everybody kind of, then they give us some food. We eat these like bread with like potatoes inside it. It was pretty disgusting. And then like everybody's like kind of getting out of there, and my team is standing around. I'm like, all right, come on, let's go. So you stand around. So the next thing you know, they give my team leader a shovel. I'm like, no, I did this day one. I said, this isn't going to go over well. I'm like, I just drove, it's 3 hours up. I'm not going out and shoveling snow. So they go to start tearing down fences. I'm about ready to go live it on somebody. So long story short, we go out to the the cross-country venue, and they're like, you got to take down all these fences. And I'm like, I'm ready to murder somebody about right now. I was like ready to have a kitten. And so I was like, well, you know what? I'm good at taking down these fences. I says, listen. So I said, we're going to go take down this row of fences. So I take them down. I stack them. I go up to the little lady that's in charge. There's some 23-year-old, that's in charge of this. I said, I came up here to take my people to dinner. I says, we took these fences down. I gave her a big hug. I says, thank you very much. Have a nice day. Goodbye. And I took my team and left. And we went into Rosa Couture and found a restaurant. Finding a restaurant is hard, because it was busy. So we go there and we watched the closing ceremonies and had some other, I had like a pork chop with like some other like mushrooms melted with cheese on top. That's what I had for dinner. It was like a heart attack waiting to happen. and I bought dinner for my whole team. Like I said, my team was just, one person was just nicer than the next, and they were just great workers.
Hey, Glenn?
Yes.
I'm fascinated by you've described all the people as kind, nice, proud, but then you talk about the management, the overall management being inept. How do you think the Russian gang, how do they handle that or perceive that, or how do they react to it was a bunch of college kids that had different layers, and so I don't even know. It's like they would just throw a lot of people at a very small task, and it was pretty simple. So I don't know if I can answer the question, but from a management standpoint, it was just nobody could make decisions or do something. Your job today is to get people on the gondola. Your job today is to say goodbye to people as they exited. So your job's to get these fences. So do the Russian folks just expect to have masses of people doing the task and just don't have very high expectations? And
I think that was it. Yeah. But the people I was working with, it's like, then they couldn't figure out how to rotate people out to get them lunch, and it just couldn't figure out timing of things. It was a trial of patience. Hey, I'm gonna cut things off. What I want to do is, I have 2 of these crazy shirts to wrap off. Unfortunately, on a more somber note, there's a bicyclist. His name's Travis Freeman. He got hit. I'd like to raise some money for him. So if anybody could throw some money. I bought some raffle tickets here. If you could, like $5 a ticket or whatever you want. Does anybody know Travis here? So apparently he's in bad shape. So I want to leave this on a downer, but if you do, I got 2 shirts to raffle off. And this is just another one of these coats that they got me. This one's not getting raffled off. More Bosco stuff. But there's one of mine. So I got one of my roommates left a shirt. It's a 3XL. So there's one, and then this one's a large. So if somebody wants to pass a hat or whatever.
That won't make picture, man.
If where's those raffle tickets at? And then if somebody wants to eat some pizza, take some pizza home with you. Somebody want to take any of these things off or put a?
How much are we doing?
I don't care. I just want to do this kind of quick.
Okay.
So yeah, here we'll give you. How about we'll give you an armful for $10? How about that?
All right, great.
An armful for $10.
Somebody take half.
You got 2 armfuls?
Yeah.
We're gonna help them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Please take pizza.